Good morning. Sir. Roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander.
Here.
Mr. Byler.
Here.
Mr. Claxton.
Here.
Dr. Coker.
Here.
Mr. Corley.
Here.
Mr. DeVilliers.
Here.
Dr. Gorey.
Here.
Dr. Gray has an excused absence. Mr. Javia.
Here.
Mr. Jenkins.
Here.
Dr. Joffrion.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Dr. Joseph. Here. Mr. Kennedy.
Here.
Mr. Martin has a proxy. Ms. Warner Johnson. Is not here. Oh, okay, sorry. Dr. Narcisse. Excused. Dr. Ortling.
Here.
Mr. Powell.
Present.
Ms. Tanner.
Here.
Ms. Trosclair. Here. Dr. Williams.
Here.
And Mr. Williams is excused. You have the quorum.
Thank you. Before we begin, just want to recognize our guests today. We have one of our best board members, Mr. Ronnie Morrison, is here. Thank you for coming. And also, I just want to welcome everyone back to our advisory council today. It's been a little while, so I hope y'all had a great holiday since we last met, and as well as happy Mardi Gras. Even the folks up north, I know y'all have some things up there. I would like to, before we get started, I just wanted to do just a few reminders. For council members, please speak into your microphone so the audience can hear you. And also, just want to recognize a few of our council members for some outstanding work that they're doing in their districts or nationally. I want to recognize Dr. Avis Williams. She received at the AESA conference the Dr. Effie H. Jones Humanitarian Champion for Equity Award while she was there, and I just want to recognize her for also want to recognize Dr. Kelly Joseph. She was also in attendance at ASA, and she received her National School Superintendent certification as well, so we want to recognize that. And also want to recognize Mr. Clay Carley. He is also on the ASA Governance Board, and if I miss someone that's on that Governance Board, just want to recognize for his hard work. So thank y'all for what y'all do for advocating for the children of Louisiana, and also for advocating for everyone in Louisiana for your hard work at AASA. Did I miss anyone? Hopefully I did not. All right, so approval of minutes.
Motion?
We will get a motion to approve minutes.
Motion to approve minutes.
Second. Motion and second. Motion by Dr. Coker, second by Mr. DeVilliers. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item number 3, standing items for consideration of issues regarding assessment and accountability. We have
Mr. Jenkins, may I make a motion that we move that to the final item on today's agenda, please?
yes. We have a motion by Dr. Jeffrion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Trosclair. Excuse me. Those in favor? Any opposed? We'll move that item to the end of our agenda for today. And also we have in section, in new business, section 4.1, consideration of an update regarding Louisiana broadband expansion. I would like to make a motion for the group. The person that's going to be presenting is not available at the moment. They're en route. And I would like to also move that item to the end of the agenda as well.
Can we get someone to make that
Can we
motion?
get someone to make that motion? Mr. DeVilliers, second by Mr. Alexander. Those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Okay. Item 4.2, consideration of an update regarding the Steve Carter Literacy Program.
Motion to receive.
Motion to receive.
So moved.
Motion received by Mr. Jones.
Second.
Second by Mr. Roy, Dr. Roy. Those in favor? Oh, not
Get
yet.
our presentation. How you doing?
I'm
You going
moving
well?
fast.
You going well?
Yeah.
Almost done.
Yes. Get it over with in 30 minutes today. Dr. Brown?
Mr. Jenkins, that may not be a bad idea, as a quarter of the leaders are about to retire. I hope they make the remainder of the meeting. Look, so before we go on to the agenda, I just want to recognize this is National Public Schools Week, and you all have done a really good job over the last few years, I think, of bringing some level of normalcy to your kids and your families through challenging times. You've been part of some outstanding data improvements that we have previously noted, whether it's us moving as a state from 46th to 42nd on the nation's report card, leading the country in fourth grade reading growth, SPS going back to pre-pandemic levels, the most significant mastery growth since 2016 in grades 3 through 8. You guys have been part of that, and so for that I just want to say thank you. That doesn't mean we are where we want to be. We know that we have a long way to go, particularly in the States. It's been long challenged educationally, but do want to honor the fact that this is National Public Schools Week and all the critical roles that you all play in trying your best to make sure your kids get a great education every day. So just want to acknowledge that. And moving forward, the Steve Carter Literacy Program, we're really excited that we have been able to launch that. We know that some people are already participating in that. A few thousand kids are already engaged. And so the legislature created the Steve Carter Literacy Program a couple of years back, did not allocate funding for that, so we decided to use a portion of our SEA state set aside of stimulus dollars from COVID to fund that. And we've done that, we've rolled that out. Students now have the opportunity to participate in that program across the state. It's really a good opportunity for kids who might just need a little extra help outside of the school day with providers who are on our approved vendor list. So Dr. Chassain's going to give you an update of where we stand. But if you're not participating in the Steve Carter Literacy Program, I just ask you to take a look at it. It's a good opportunity for your kids and families.
Thanks, Dr. Brumley. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning.
So just wanted to spend a few minutes talking about the current status, bring you all an update on the Steve Carter Literacy Tutoring Program. Dr. Brumley already prefaced that we have committed $40 million of our ESSER set aside for this tutoring program. This provides families with $1,000 digital tutoring vouchers to provide students with tutoring. And so this tutoring is all based on the legislation from several years ago, but it's for kindergarten through fifth grade learners who are found to be below grade level in reading. And it's all about implementing tutoring best practices around the science of reading. These are trained and qualified tutors, and this is all provided through approved tutoring vendors. So just wanted to talk for a few minutes about what you all can be doing to support the Steve Carter Literacy Tutoring Program out in your school systems. And so what you all could be doing is supporting this through conversations with your principals right now, making sure your principals are aware of the program and that they're getting the word out. They can do this by identifying eligible students and then sending home those parent notification letters that include their child's 10-digit student ID number. The platform is really easy to use. All they have to do is go to the website, Louisiana Tutoring Initiative.com, and so once they get on, they're able to put in their child's ID number, and they're able to put in a zip code and find what tutoring providers are in the area. I'll also note that some areas only have virtual tutoring available. The whole state has virtual tutoring available. Some of our areas that are more rural in setting, and even some that aren't rural in setting, don't have face-to-face tutoring available at this time. We are working on that. We're trying to engage with tutoring vendors across the state, but you all can be a part of that as well. If you have some local tutoring providers who want to be a part of this program, engage with them and welcome them to apply. We have an ongoing request for applications process to add to that tutoring vendor guide. So we just added a few more, and we're opening again in April for applications. So if you all have tutoring providers in your area, let them know. Please apply in April. You can help give them the information to do that so that you can have face-to-face tutoring as an option in your area for your students. The other thing that we've seen that I think has gone really well is that we have groups of teachers who have gotten together. So a teacher does need to start a small business, they would need an LLC to become a tutoring provider, but we have groups of teachers who have come together in areas that might not have tutoring providers. And so those groups of teachers come together, one of them creates an LLC, and they become the tutoring provider for their area that can offer face-to-face tutoring. So that's been really successful in some areas as well. So we have a sample family letter that you all can send home to families, and we're asking you all to help promote it through social media and through letters and emails out to your families. We have about 3,000 students enrolled right now, but we have funding for up to 36,000. So we really want to expand the program. We're relying on you all to please help us do that. We need to increase our tutoring providers. We need to increase our children enrolled. This goes through next school year, and it is available during the summer. So this is a great way for children to be provided with summer learning. So please, please encourage people to use it throughout the summer. You might even entertain sending home Chromebooks with children if they're going to engage in some of the virtual tutoring over the summer, but find a way to increase that tutoring over the summer. I wanted to ask Superintendent Javia to please speak for a minute. We have our top 3 right now school systems who have students enrolled are Bossier, St. Tammany, and Livingston. And so I wanted to ask Superintendent Javia of St. Tammany to just talk a little bit about the work that they've done in his school system to make sure that children are enrolling in the program.
As Dr. Chason stated, we made it a priority with our principals. We have about 27 schools in our district that qualify for the age group. So it really made it a priority. They've talked about it in PLCs. The teachers have made it part of their newsletter that goes home. We targeted the students that we need to target. Our students with exceptionalities director has done a great job of targeting the students that have gone through SPLC and done those kind of things. So we've really done a great job of trying to hit them from many avenues. We have a robo-text where we can target students. Our principals can send reminders home to parents to please take advantage of this program. So we're trying to hit them everywhere we can, but as she talked about, social media has probably been one of the best avenues. Those young parents, they look and they live on social media. So we've really made a huge effort through Instagram and through Facebook to hit those young parents and try to get that information out and get them to take care of those things and get registered and get started, and a lot of them have. So we're just going to continue to grow that. So thank you guys for making that a priority for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Just one additional note is that you all have some really robust tutoring programs that happen during the day, whether it's through tutoring or through intervention blocks that you all have built into your day, and we love seeing that as we go around the state. So just noting that this program is really meant to be something additional. It's really meant to be outside of school hours. It's not meant to replace the interventions that are already happening during the school day, but it's meant to be something extra, which is why I think it's such a great idea for the summer as well, especially if you have had trouble getting children into your buildings throughout the summer. Maybe parents are open to this in the summer instead of a summer learning program. So just an additional resource and a program for you all to use.
And think about what you said around that if you have individuals in your community that could be high impact tutors or potential tutoring companies to develop that infrastructure where it doesn't exist today, particularly around the face-to-face instruction. That seems to be the most challenging, particularly in rural areas. So if you have any thoughts on that, we have like a rolling RFP where people and companies can join our vendor guide. So just connect with Dr. Chasson, our member of her team.
And the email address is on that slide, it's Louisiana Literacy at la.gov. If you have any questions about the program, whether that's from the student side or the family access side, but also if you have any questions about the vendors and supporting any vendors in your area for applying, you can reach out to Louisiana Literacy at la.gov.
Okay. To the members, any questions or any comments, or additional comments? So Dr. Chasson, could you repeat just for my clarity, is 36,000 you said that we can enroll up to?
Yes, so in 36,000 total. We do have this current cycle is going to run through the end of this summer, and then children could re-enroll for next school year as well.
Next school year.
So 36 total between this cycle and the next cycle.
I do have one question since everyone's quiet. When COVID dollars are done, will this is something that we're considering to continue to do? Sounds a really great program. Is this something we would like to continue to do?
I think we'll have to explore ROI, academic return on investment. Clearly, we think it holds a lot of promise, but we need to be able to track information on the students and their performance and how it hopefully improves over the course of time. And if so, I think it puts us in a better position to be able to request funds to be able to do something like this.
Is there a list somewhere where we can see how many of our folks are taking advantage of it? Like we know we're pushing stuff out, but we don't, is there a report somewhere where we can tell how many students from Rocky Superior maybe taking advantage of it?
We do have a list. If you email Louisiana Literacy, we can get you that. We do have a list of how many per school system.
So Dr. Chasson, if it's a group of certified teachers doing this, would this be taken into consideration for the third graders who perhaps aren't coming to summer school now? That would this be another option for those kids?
This is another option for them
As
to
far as
receive
even
those
if it's
required
virtual,
access.
even if it's virtual?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing up my concern around third graders, Superintendent Truska.
You're right.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. All right. Anybody opposed to receiving the report? Hearing no oppositions. Thank you. Item 4.3, consideration of an update report regarding instructional initiatives. Do we have a motion to proceed?
Motion to receive.
Motion and a second. Dr. Brown?
Thank you. I'm really excited about all the literacy energy that we have across the state. I mean, as I go through your schools, it's just incredible seeing the improvements around the need to base literacy efforts around the science of reading. So all the different policy levels, whether it's from the state board or the legislature or from our office, it's just really exciting and we enjoy seeing those things that are happening around literacy. We think that our literacy strategy is the right strategy. It incorporates much of the work that happened in Mississippi over the last decade, in many ways a more aggressive model. But we're also, at this point, trying to make a shift to begin tackling math in the same way. And so over the next several months, and you've already probably felt some of that with some of the math refresh, but we'll be getting more aggressive with math, and certainly we'll need you alongside of us as we take on math in a new way. You know, I've been overly concerned for some time around the fact that when you look at fourth grade mastery rates in math, they're in the 40s, and by the time they're in the 8th grade, they're in the 20s. And so it's a systemic issue across the state where we know that we have to address it, and so we're trying to solve for those things. So please partner with us around those things, and also, you know, we adopted new social studies standards, so it's going to be a matter of working to cultivate resources for that over the next few years, and keep in mind that when that happened for science, it took a few years to be able to get things going, so we're working through that, but we just want to give you an update, particularly on math and social studies today.
Oh, it's left, okay. It'll probably not. Okay, thanks, Dr. Brumley, for that introduction. Just a few notes about our math refresh this morning. You all have probably seen our literacy pillars, which have really grounded our comprehensive strategic plan around literacy. And we are now in the process of building that strategic plan around math and how we will improve math as a state. And so that's all around our math refresh. You can see our math pillars that really prioritize high-quality grade-level math instruction, those timely proactive interventions to make sure that our students are all prepared for that grade level instruction and have exactly what they need at the right time. We know that it's going to take professional learning and proactive planning of our educators in order to do this really difficult work. And we also acknowledge that families, our caregivers, and communities are a really important part of our child's educational journey. And so in January, one of the I'd say the core pieces of our math strategy that we've begun already is that statewide access to Zern. And many of you have probably already heard me talk about Zern, And why Zern is that Zern has impact data that is super strong, and that is based on third-party research about the impact that Zern can have on our students. And Zern can be used as a high-quality core material. It is on our Tier 1 list for our high-quality instructional materials, but it also can be used as a supplement. It can be used to provide just-in-time supports alongside any other high-quality instructional material being used for core. And so all of our children, K-8, now have statewide access to Zern. And so just wanted to encourage you all to really make sure that your school leaders, that your educators know about this access. And the impact data is based on 3 lessons per week. So 3 Zern lessons per week have shown to have a really great impact on student learning around mathematics. So again, want to encourage you all to think a little outside the box, even about this summer. I know that we've had some great momentum around our summer learning programs these past few summers. I expect that this summer, it may be a little more difficult to have parents send their children to a 3rd year of summer learning. I think you all are probably experiencing that. We should offer it, we should have it, we should encourage it, but it might be a little more difficult than it's been the last few years. I think some of the urgency parents might have felt around COVID has waned a little in the last few years, so they may not feel that they have to send their children to summer learning, but it might be a great idea to send home those Chromebooks, send home those devices this summer, maybe for Steve Carter literacy tutoring and maybe for their Zern. And think about creative things that you can do as a school system to reward and acknowledge students for completing those 3 lessons per week. So I think communication with parents is going to be really essential. We do have a handful of school systems who haven't yet rostered that we'll be reaching out to support you in that process if you choose to do that. We also have a summer family toolkit that we'll be releasing in April that will help you all in communicating with parents throughout the summer around literacy and also around our math refresh strategy, including communication around Zern this summer, so that families can be supported in using Zern at home with their children.
Dr. Sheslin, I just want to pause and see if anyone would like to share out how they are seeing Zern implementation going in their schools, particularly if it's a supplement. Because I had not seen much of it until probably the last couple of months, and I'm beginning to see some of it. So I'm just curious, like in terms of feedback, is there anything that you need from us to help support that?
We use it as a curriculum, not as a supplement, and I really like it.
I think I saw it in Danville too, whenever I was up in Park Work.
I think maybe just education or clarification on our part to understand if it is not our curriculum, but how does it fit as a supplement and not fight against, another curriculum. And that's probably on us to just educate ourselves or take advantage of the resources we have.
And we can definitely give some more clear guidance on how to do that in some creative scheduling ways. I think at home use is one that I've seen work really well when you're sending those devices home, which I know not everyone is anymore, but if you are. Also built within the day is always, the best to make sure that we have that equitable access for all children. And I think building it into those intervention blocks, what I've seen work really well is when we have small groups and teachers are pulling a small group. And it doesn't even have to be I'm doing math small groups. It can be I'm just doing centers and small groups. And maybe I'm pulling my small group to work on some literacy interventions, but the other children in the classroom are working on Zern. Zern is really very easy for kids to use on their own, all the way down through kindergarten, honestly, especially once they get used to it and the lessons are set up the same way day after day. So I think using it during that intervention block for the children who aren't engaged with the teacher or the power professional during that small group work is an excellent way to use supplementally.
And a couple of years ago, we did many of you participated in the scheduling work where we came through and we helped you think about your school day and how it might look. And so the reason I asked the question is if you need something from us to help on implementation, like we want to know what that thing is for this particular part of the project.
moving on to social studies. You all also might have heard, we announced this, I believe, on our January system, you recall, the creation of Bayou Bridges, kindergarten through 8th grade Louisiana social studies curriculum. And so we have partnered with Core Knowledge Foundation to develop Bayou Bridges. This is going to be an open source curriculum, and it's going to contain everything that you all need and that teachers need in the classroom to implement a full range curriculum. So it'll include unit plans and daily lessons, student and teacher-facing materials, engaging primary sources. We know that that was very important in our social studies standards, those primary sources. It will include formative and summative assessments, and it will be 100% aligned to our Louisiana student standards for social studies and to our new instructional materials review rubric. So we have an FAQ document. It's linked here on this slide, but of course, happy to answer any questions, and our team is happy to help with anything that you all may need. Grades 4th and 5th grade will be completed for next school year. We did choose to prioritize grades 4 and 5. We know that those are the years that we're seeing a very big shift in the content for those 4th and 5th grade teachers compared to what they were teaching in the past. So we prioritize grades 4 and 5 to be completed for next school year. And the other grade levels will come out on a rolling basis throughout next school year, unit by unit. So there will be some units released for all grade levels throughout next year. But everything will be completed kindergarten through 8th grade by the 24-25 school year, so the year after next year. The next slide.
Dr. Chancellor, for the summative and formative assessments, are they formatted similar to LEAP 2025? I see that the standards you say are 100%. How are those assessments?
Yes, so they will mirror LEAP 2025 items. The new LEAP, yeah, because we will have a new assessment for these new standards. So, and you all can be assured that our academic content team that champions this work around standards and curriculum is working really hand in hand with our assessment, accountability, and analytics team that is actually building the new assessment. So they are working hand in hand to make sure that the standards, this curriculum, and our new assessments will be completely aligned.
Just one other question. Could consideration be given to 3rd grade as you were rolling out, or is that going to be up to the folks that are putting this together?
To prioritize 3rd grade?
Yes.
We can look at that in the timeline and see how many units for 3rd grade we can have as quickly as possible.
Sharon is not panicking in the back.
I'm texting Sean. I'm up here making all the promises. So yes, we will do our best. We will do our best, Superintendent. But definitely grades 4 and 5 for next year. And we're working as quickly as possible to make sure that they're all completed as quickly as possible. The next slide shows a timeline. So just to let you all know that we did release our instructional materials review rubric and process this past July, meaning that we do have a few publishers that are in the queue. So we do have some materials going through the IMR process. So if any of you are wondering about high school, we do have some high school offerings because this is a K-8 curriculum that we're in partnership with. So we do have a few things for high school going through that IMR process right now. We expect to see some more submitted over the next few months. So we have begun to offer our webinars and Q&A opportunities on the standards, and now we'll start those on the curriculum itself. We're going to be releasing our social studies course frameworks. This is not like our old scope and sequences that were almost like a small curriculum in themselves. They were so long, those old social studies scope and sequences. These frameworks are a scaled down version of that. They're not meant to be a full curriculum, but they are meant to be really helpful for teachers when they think about their pacing and what to teach when to cover the standards. We'll have some sessions at Teacher Leaders Summit this year about the social studies standards, but also about Bayou Bridges. And throughout June and July, we'll offer some professional learning opportunities on Bayou Bridges specifically for grades 4 and 5 throughout the summer. And then we'll continue to release those professional learning offerings as additional units and grade levels roll out over the next year. I'll pause there if you all have any more questions about social studies. So the last thing that I have for you all today is around computer science engagement. This past legislative session last spring, a computer science education commission was born. And so that group of stakeholders has been coming together over the last several months and really engaging around the future of computer science education for our state, which is really exciting. This is new territory for us. And so we are looking for feedback on computer science education. You can see this slide shows where we have input that has been provided via a survey. And so we have 34 parishes that have provided input. This is an open survey, so if you all have stakeholders in your community, it might be some educators who are champions for computer science, it might be some business and industry leaders who are really interested in computer science, please invite them to complete this short survey to share their ideas and really their input on computer science education for our state. We're planning to host a superintendent's listening session on Thursday, April 6th, immediately following our system leaders call. This will be announced in our weekly newsletter. So we'll have our system leader call that morning, and right after we'll have a listening session for any superintendents who want to join and give input on computer science education. So we ask you to please complete the survey and announce it to others in your community to give input on computer science education. We look forward to where that work goes over the coming year.
Do you have any comments or questions? Any opposed? We have a motion and a second, any opposed?
I just want to emphasize, like, these are big lifts, they're important for our state. This math work, of course, the ongoing literacy work, this math work, and this new social skills work. And, like, if you have needs, or you have suggestions, or there's something we can help you with, like, connect with us and let us know so that we can be supportive of what those things may be.
Thank you, Superintendent. Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward to 4.4, consideration of an update report regarding minimum requirements for dual enrollment.
Motion to proceed.
Motion Dr. Alexander. Second. Second by Mr. Hill. Okay. Dr. Brown.
Yes, sir. Our partner from the Board of Regents, Dr. Craig, just want to make this presentation.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you today to talk about dual enrollment and some changes in policy that the Board of Regents has made within the last several months that we just wanted to make sure that you were aware of. Happy to be here with all of you. Is this the button? Do you think? Is that it? Okay. So just a quick refresher. I see many friends and faces on this council, but dual enrollment is when a student is taking a high school course and a college course simultaneously, and the course is, the grade of the course is going on the transcript for both. But we've done some research, and it's part of our dual enrollment report, which I'm going to talk about. Using a national representative sample, it shows that students who take dual enrollment courses are more likely to, dual enrollment courses in high school are more likely to persist. If they take at least just one dual enrollment course, they are 10% more likely to complete a bachelor's degree. And if a student is first generation, or perhaps their parents have not gone to a post-secondary institution, they were 12% more likely to finish if they had just taken one dual enrollment course while still in high school. So very briefly, I'm going to go through these slides fairly quickly, just going to talk about 3 important things today, make you aware of our dual enrollment report, talk briefly about the policy updates that have been recently made, and make you aware about our ladualenrollment.com. It's a one-stop shop for dual enrollment that we want to make sure that teachers in your district know about, and counselors. So the legislature created the dual enrollment task force. Several people in the room are actually on that task force. And it has educators on the task force. It's got a representative from the School Boards Association, the Superintendents Association, teachers, counselors, and we even have, we always reach out to the students as well. And so there are 13 members, and we talk about universal access and equity, how we're going to fund it, which I know is a very important conversation for each of you here today. How to course access and the pathways to completion, as well as integrity, and then again, the annual report. So this legislation was created by Act 128 of the 2019 session, and this task force makes recommendations to the Board of Regents for policy. So we have since submitted 2 reports to the legislature. The first initial report was in 2019, and then of course the pandemic hit for all of us, and we regrouped. And our second report was just submitted to the legislature this, in the 2022 report was submitted in January of 23. And so despite pandemic disruptions that the class of 21 have experienced in their opportunities for dual enrollment, we do have a bright spot. There was a 2 percentage point increase in the cohort that graduated with college credit, which we're very excited about. Half of the graduates who earned either college credit or an industry-based credential did so by doing that through dual enrollment courses. Dual enrollment courses are the largest percentage of courses for early college credit. We just want to remind everyone 2 things, that the Bessie and the Board of Regents made a joint goal in 2019 that by the graduating class of 2029, that every student will graduate with some early college experience, credit, whether that is dual enrollment, AP, IB, industry-based credential. It can be academic or technical course credit, and letting you know that the current 6th graders, that's the class that we're talking about. So it's really important that we're gearing up for this goal. So here's some quick early information about our joint goal. Again, there it is in the blue box, that every student graduating in 2029 will graduate with some form of early college credit. If you take a second right here and look at our the high school class of 2021, there were 53,246 ninth graders. Of that class, 17% did not graduate on time. 53% graduated with college credit or an industry credential. 30% graduated with no college credit. So we're working towards this goal. You can see in the bottom right corner, we're slightly increasing, again, 2% increase. Early college credit at the Board of Regents recognizes and collect exams as well. I don't think I said that earlier when I was talking about early college credit. So I'm just going to put this here. This is the QR code. If you are interested, I'm pretty sure you've all been emailed this PowerPoint, but feel free, if you have more interest in more of the statistics, please take a minute and go look at our dual enrollment report. Because of these increasing strides in dual enrollment, the Board of Regents wanted to take a look at the policy surrounding dual enrollment, and the positive results that we're seeing really prompted some of these changes. So the first change that was made, most of it due to the pandemic, was how a student becomes eligible for a dual enrollment course. And so in response to the pandemic, we developed an interim policy. Well, that interim policy became permanent this year. And so that, the policy is what it allows for is the student who is going to take the academic dual enrollment course has a cumulative GPA of a 2.5 with a specific score on a test, which is outlined in the policy. I have it here, but there's a large number of assessments that can be used for that purpose, but also counselor recommendation. And one of the things that we found through our initial research is that those students who entered into these courses were just as successful on counselor recommendation, were just as successful as those who were entered into the dual enrollment course based off a specific test score. And so we've made some additional changes about how a student could possibly stay in dual enrollment. And so I wanted to just talk through this information. So there are two charts. Dr. Denley, I believe, came to you in October and shared kind of the draft of what this policy was going to look like. But this policy on the screen right now has been approved, and I think it is also in your packets. So what's in green allows for, if you have a student who has an interest in taking a particular dual enrollment course, let's say for interest, they are very interested in history, and they have a 2.5 or above in American history. But maybe their total cumulative GPA is not a 2.5. That student for the first dual enrollment course could be enrolled in a history or a social studies dual enrollment course, as long as their grade in that course is above a 2.5. And so what that does is allows for, if you see under 2 on the screen, make sure that's, yep. So they have a GPA above a 2.5, let's say in American history, and their senior year they want to take dual enrollment world civilizations. Let's say you're on the block, and that's the fall semester, and they are successful in that course. They make a 3.0 in that course. Then the student can take additional dual enrollment courses that are not in history. Because one of the things that we really believe at the Board of Regents is the best predictor of success in college is college level work. And so if they are being successful in a dual enrollment course, then that student should be allowed access to taking other dual enrollment courses, if of course it meets with scheduling at your school. In addition, we wanted to, and through help with the Louisiana Community and Technical College System, we wanted to further define eligibility requirements for those taking technical courses. And so this piece of the policy might be new to some of you. So if a student is eligible to enroll in a technical dual enrollment course, if they meet any of the following criteria. Success in high school, and that's a 2.0 cumulative GPA, a counselor recommendation, or previous success in dual enrollment courses. So if you've had a student who may have already taken a technical course, they were successful in that technical course, can continue on that track. We're really grateful to our partners at LCTCS who helped us actually come up with the criteria that you see here. And again, all of that is in our academic affairs policy for dual enrollment, and you should have the QR code in your PowerPoint. The third policy, or second policy change that we made is we expanded, am I not pointing to the right place? Okay. We expanded our college admission pathway. Based off of early college experiences on the high school campus. So under the new guidelines, students who complete their core coursework can pursue college admission at the institution of their choice by earning either an associate's degree or by completing the required numbers of early college academic credits. And so our policy defines early college academic credit is any college credit earned before completing high school or during the summer immediately following high school graduation. So early college credit can be earned through dual enrollment, AP, IB, or CLEP. And I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide so you can actually see what we've added to our admissions criteria policy is what you see up here in green. There are the flagship institution, which is LSU Baton Rouge. If a student earns 18 early college academic credit hours and at least a 2.5 GPA, that is an admission, a requirement that would admit them into LSU Baton Rouge. Our statewide institutions are Louisiana Tech, UL Lafayette, and the University of New Orleans. That is 15 early college academic credit hours. Our regional institutions, LSU-A, LSU-S, McNeese, Nichols, Northwestern, Southeastern, and University of Louisiana at Monroe. 12 early college credit hours and a 2.0. And then our HBCU institutions, Grambling, Southern Baton Rouge, and Southern New Orleans is 9 early college credit hours. So if you've got a student who possibly is either on the line with some of their academic credit, the way that they were planning to be accepted into the institution of their choice, this is basically an independent arm that allows them to be admitted based on the number of hours of early college credit. So we're very excited about this new addition to the admissions policy because it provides for students another pathway to a four-year institution.
Before you go forward,
Sure.
you've given us a lot of information, and
Okay.
I just want to give any members any opportunity to ask any questions before we get too far.
Sure.
In case you have questions. Mr.
I
Alexander?
actually have 2 questions.
Okay.
That's okay.
Sure.
So one, very simple. You mentioned the summer after graduation. And I know that the industry-based certifications, you have an opportunity for children to earn, for graduates to earn that and it still be counted by policy. Does this include here too? If you were doing a dual enrollment course for a graduate, a senior that has graduated, and that's during the summer?
According to the new policy.
Back to the strength and diploma index.
Well, this is about admission into college. This is not connected to the strength and
I
diploma
understand.
index.
So that was why I was asking the question, because I know I can run a industry-based certification over the summertime, and it does go towards strength and diploma. I believe Mr. Bradford and I just recently talked about that. I think it's in policy.
I think that would depend upon the actions of the Bessie board as to whether or not that would be included.
So is that something we can chase?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we can get information.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, we're gonna do it, we're gonna support it, we're gonna push it. So the second question I had, and it may not be something that really needs to be talked about here. I've got a question, and if it needs to be tabled and talked about with superintendents later, it's fine. But I love the council recommendation. By the way, thank y'all for expanding all of this. I want to say, none of my questions are criticisms or questions, right?
Sure.
Appreciate the council recommendation. I just wonder, do we need policy? And I'm talking to this group. If the council doesn't recommend, where does that challenge go? Because I can just see getting that email or that challenge, like my child was not allowed to do dual enrollment because it didn't qualify. But a counselor could recommend and chose not to. I just thought I'd put that on the table. But it may not be that we need to discuss that here, so maybe another place. Is there anything in policy that, from the state level, that it could be stepped out, or is that just locals? And I'm sure it's just really a local policy. Anything else?
So yes, that would be a decision that you would make at the local level.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I need to think that through then.
I think I saw another
just for clarification, the academic credit hours, just regardless if it's full enrollment, AP.
That's correct.
So and was there any discussion during your meeting relative to the strength of those being more so than any other? So I know the discussion, when we had accountability discussions in regards to certain ones being weighted more. So when you all had these discussions, you all weighted them all equally.
They're weighted equally in terms of admissions criteria for your institutions. A CLEP score that's appropriate is equal to a dual enrollment credit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I have one.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to go through, and thank God for all the information, it's a lot. And as Mr. Alexander said, there's going to be some ongoing conversations about different aspects of what you're presenting, I think, that could potentially have impact in other areas. Especially when we talk about I think we're trying to bring clarity to the definition of college and or career readiness. And so when I read all of those that you have on the minimum admission standards as this or this or this, if I'm reading this correctly, it's saying that a student who graduates high school with a 2.5 GPA is eligible, quote unquote, college ready to go to UNO, Louisiana Tech, Lafayette, or UL.
Yeah, that's correct. But what we're saying here on this chart is if you were going to be, for instance, each institution sets their own admissions criteria. It used to be either a certain GPA or a certain ACT core plus the core. So what this does here is it now allows, let's say they have a 2.9 at LSU, 2.7 at LSU, but they took 18 early college credit hours and they have at least a 2.5. They are eligible to be admitted without ever even looking at the ACT score.
Okay, just sticking with that first column.
Yes.
So whether they take any dual enrollment or AP.
As long as they have the core and what you see in the first column is accurate.
A 3.0 on a core curriculum makes you college eligible.
A 3.0 on a 3.0 on a college on the core, the high school core, makes you eligible to be enrolled at Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge.
We're saying the same thing. Thank you.
Okay.
We have one more person. Dr. Craig.
Without taking the ACT or taking the dual enrollment. If a kid scores a 3.0 in the core GPA, they're eligible to go to LSU.
As long as they have met the core, because it has always been. I feel like we're going down a little road here. I'm not really sure what road I'm on, but I'm riding with that. So I'm gonna be very clear. According to the Board of Regents, it has always been the core and either GPA or ACT. That's always been what the Board of Regents has said. So that I can only speak for the Board of Regents.
So my next question is then, what will be the response by the State Department regarding this change with regards to accountability? What are you going to do about accountability now that these things have changed?
I mean, this is a Board of Regents shift in terms of how students are eligible to enter into their institutions. This isn't a high school accountability question.
And
particularly if you don't have a student with a particular ACT score, you're not offering them the opportunity to go to college with a top scholarship. So that's another consideration that I think we have to make.
That is correct. I just want to be very clear. What we are showing you here is a new pathway for admission to four-year institutions. It doesn't, to be eligible for TOPS, you must have the requisite ACT score.
So let me ask this question then. You said in your presentation, any dual enrollment course, Right now, I think, I don't know how you have it in the strength of diploma. What's the requirements for kids scoring or getting any kind of credit and accountability with regard to like an associate's degree? Isn't there something like there's a path to that? Because there's a difference between that language and what you say any dual enrollment. Am I making sense?
You are, I just think you're asking questions that are for the Department of Education and not the Board of
I think
Regents.
she's trying to make a point, not ask a question. And my point back would be that I have no intent of lowering academic standards for high school students in Louisiana.
Ms. Russell?
It was answered through Dr. Joseph's questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Craig, for pausing for a moment.
Sure. I don't know. Thank you, appreciate it. So basically what we are doing at the Board of Regents is working to communicate to our high school students that connecting their work in dual enrollment, the work that they are doing in dual enrollment on the high school campus will now connect directly to a pathway for college admission. Again, I'm only talking about a new pathway for college admission. This is a first-in-nation approach, which really blurs the line between high school and college. It's an expanded admission pathway, which really validates early college experiences on the high school campus. And I'll reiterate, we believe there's no better method of proving a student is ready to succeed in college courses than actually succeeding in college courses. And so we're excited to see the impact of this new pathway. Again, it's brand new, so we have not, there's no completed data on it, but students can start being enrolled in the four-year institutions using this new pathway starting in this fall. Yeah, this is not working. Point to the wrong place. I'll just wrap up very quickly. The Board of Regents has, thanks. The Board of Regents has created a one-stop shop for dual enrollment. We've got the ladualenrollment.com. I wanted to make sure that you were aware. This is a dynamic site. It's got over 6,000 courses in this site that we update each semester with our institutions of higher education. If you can follow across the top, we have our courses. We've got the fields of study. It provides information for parents. We have an interactive FAQ section, and we have a staff member at the Board of Regents who answers questions directly coming from this website. And we are working towards, we're actually doing the programming now, but in the future, we are working towards a standard application for dual enrollment to help high school counselors. It will be an online system so that they are not taking in paper copies at the dual enrollment parent night and going home and inputting all of the information into the system. So we're very excited about that. And one more, thank you, sir. If you are interested, you certainly can use this QR code to visit ladualenrollment.com. And with that, if there are any other questions, if you could go ahead and one more time, and then I'll be done. Thank you. This is my contact information. So please, I guess I did not introduce myself at the beginning of talking. I apologize. I am Dr. Savannah Craig. I'm Deputy Commissioner of Higher Education. My office focuses on strategic planning and student success. And we are happy to answer your questions. If I can't answer your questions, I will certainly get it to the person who can.
Thank you, Dr. Craig. Do we have any other questions or comments?
Not that I'm changing, but I just want Superintendent Jenkins. I want to thank Dr. Craig. We work together routinely, but also she serves on a number of task force representing the regions with the Department of Education and DESE. And so she's always given of her time to come and give presentations or know about and support work. So I just want to say thank you for what you do to pretend and be an active participant in often robust discussions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Craig.
All right, any opposition? We have a first and a second to receive. Any opposition? Hearing none. Thank you. All right. Item 4.5, consideration of an update report regarding the Teacher Advisory Council. Motion to receive. A motion by Mr. Barber. A second. Second by Dr. Gould.
Thank you. This is where I host your teachers and they talk about you, and I get to listen to it. So we began the Superintendent Statewide Advisory Council, and I know many of you have this within your local systems. I had this as a local superintendent where you have a group of teachers that just help provide feedback on things that you're trying to accomplish. I know, Mr. Cooley, you've got that rolling and improved on that in DeSoto. But so this year we launched the first Superintendent's Teacher Advisory Council for the state. We had 900 people, 900 teachers apply for that, which is an incredible amount of teachers. We were only able to take about 24, and we've been meeting with them quarterly. Actually, Joan on our team has been taking a lead on this particular effort, and I think she's the right person to do it. Joni was the 2017 Louisiana Teacher of the Year, so she understands the profession, has been a real help to me. But this won't take long. I just wanted to update you all that we are meeting with this group of teachers quarterly. Some of the things that we've been hearing fairly consistently, and I met with John this morning, I said, let's sync on some of the most common things we're hearing from the teachers, and let's see if my list matches your list. And they were very similar. And I'll just tell you some of the things that we routinely hear. Is any opportunity that you have to reduce paperwork, bureaucracy, load on teachers, explore those opportunities. I will tell you, it's a question I ask them every time. Like, I hear paperwork, I hear bureaucracy, what does that mean to you? And so I think it's a good question for you to even ask locally. That, you know, what does paperwork mean to you? What does bureaucracy mean to you? And how can that be lessened? And so that's something that we hear a good bit of. The next thing is them wanting an environment where they feel safe to teach. And so it's about classroom management, behavior, support from their principal to know if they have a challenge, that they will have an environment in their classroom where they can actually teach. And then I think the third thing is really just wanting to be compensated fairly for the work that they're doing. Fair compensation, treated well by their principal, having a place where their voice can be heard and they can be part of the process. And so I think if I were just to sum up over the course of the year the things that we're hearing more than anything else, those are the things. But they're also like very excited about a lot of the efforts that you guys are undertaking. They've been excited about the literacy work. They've been excited about like teacher leadership in your systems and teachers that you have assigned to help support them, and particularly new teachers. So a lot of great stuff moving in your systems, but I just want to take a moment just to kind of report out on some of the things that I'm hearing from them. And so that's all I had, Superintendent Jenkins.
Thank you, Superintendent Barber. Any comments or questions? Any opposed? Any opposition? Forward, thank you. Item 4.6, consideration of revisions to Bulletin 741, Louisiana Handbook for School Administrators regarding student attendance. Motion to receive.
I'll make that motion.
All right, Dr. Jeffrey, motion. We have a second by Mr. Johnson.
Yes, sir, thank you. One of the challenges with student attendance, particularly truancy, is that we really do not have great data across the state. It's a symptom of the broader problem, which are just data systems that are in many ways antiquated. And so what we want to do is try to find a way to level set just to make sure that we can get better data on attendance so that we actually know the decisions that need to be made. And I've said publicly a number of times, I think that our system for student attendance statewide is broken in many ways. There should be a flow chart between you, law enforcement, you and district attorneys, you and juvenile judges with support systems that wrap up the family and the kids around those things. And there are plenty of opportunities to make that better across the state, and so that's what we're trying to engage in right now, to think about ways to make that better, but we have to get good data in order to be able to do that. And so Dr. Singleton's kind of leading out on this work for marketing, and so I wanted her to take some time just to share out where we are and some of the early recommendations that are being made at the state level.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So you have in front of you the policy language that we are bringing to Bessie next month for approval. And the 2 slides that we have on this basically cover that particular language. The first thing that we are seeking to do is streamline the types of absences. Sorry, I was telling you the last thing about policy. The first thing we're trying to do is streamline the types of absences down from 4 to 3. And those include excused absences, unexcused absences, and then suspension expulsion. And what you see in the policy language is I'm really going to refer to that particular document. You can see how the language has changed. We provided a strike through to some of the language and just try to provide additional clarity to what each one of those items means. The second thing we want to do within that same section of Bulletin 741, which is item E, is provide opportunities for students to make up missed work in a timely manner. Now, one thing that we did not do in this language is tell you all what that timely manner is. It is a local decision, but just to provide that opportunity for all students who miss school, whether they were suspended, excused absence, or unexcused absence, have the opportunity to make up missed work, because we think that is important, and so we want to provide that opportunity. And then the final thing, if you turn over to the policy language document in letter E, is the collection of attendance data on a daily basis. This is a scaled implementation. This is not something we're trying to do overnight. We are trying to be very intentional with collecting this particular piece of data. As Dr. Gomez stated, we cannot impact change if we don't know what we have. And at present, this is information that we are not collecting at the state level at present on a daily basis. But we know that that is something that takes time to do. So in this coming academic year, our goal is to work with you all on how this looks. We know that some systems already do this. You all have the items in place so that this can be done. But we want to work with you all on how this looks right now for you all who are doing it, how it will impact those systems who are not doing it or who may not be utilizing electronic data systems to collect this data, because we are aware of some systems who may not be doing that. So we want to work with them on how this implementation would look. Then in 24-25, we want to look at collecting this data on a monthly basis. And then in 25-26, collecting it on a daily basis. And so the question comes up, well, what are you going to do with this data? And so the purpose of collecting this data is to know where our students are. We are asked many times by the public where students are not in school, but right now we cannot give them that information until the end of data collection in the summer, because we don't get our average daily attendance. That data is not cleaned up until sometime in July. So in order for us to act immediately, so right now we wanted to know what's happening in a region of the state, right, we do not know. So the goal is to be intentional, to collect this data more accurately over time. So we are looking for feedback from you all on this particular policy. We have met with many stakeholders over the last few weeks, from our charter schools, from superintendents, to, we spoke with Mr. Jenkins about it. We've spoken with other interested parties with regards to attendance to make sure that we are trying to get the right information. So this is where we are with this particular policy.
I have a question. Is this part of the SMART task force?
Yes.
Do we have any superintendents on that task force that we're aware of?
No, not at this time.
Is it possible to put a couple on there?
Yes, at this point, the task force will not meet again until the fall, And we're looking at the attendance, the makeup of the task force, so we are looking to add additional.
Because I'm one of those districts, we submit daily. And when we submit, we have one system, I think it goes into the new EdLink system, am I correct?
Yes.
It's the same thing we've had, we send things and it comes back with errors and problems. I know the system's still working, so I want to make sure that is something that we are working on.
Thank you, and that's what we want. We know of one other system that submits daily, and so we're trying to find that information out so we can see what issues and problems that you're
Put
having.
me down Jackson Parish, because I know I talked to my lady the other day before we came, and she says we do it daily. And another issue we've had with a lot of this system, I think I brought this up before, a lot of, I don't know if y'all seen, a lot of your audits are going to say some of this in the back of your comments. Our auditor sat with us, and it's more on class rosters, Dr. Brumley. I think what's happening is a JPAM system or something we have, you have a roster, how many people in the class that day. When it submits to the EdLink system takes it and puts it in the chart. So let's say you have a junior high classroom and you move a kid from a first period to a sixth period. It doesn't show the number on the EdLink. The auditors are looking at numbers. They would have to go on that chart and see that we moved that kid to sixth period. So the auditors are making documents. I had one comment in my audit that they didn't match up. Did make comments, some of the other systems may have 10 or 20 in their system. So if that can, just a number, it's something I'm sure the computer person can do. Thank you.
Yes, I have you back.
Thank you.
Part of the issue around all this is going to be pushing on some of the more prominent student information systems to make it as easy as possible so that it doesn't require any manual labor of anyone to go in and start pushing buttons every day. And so trying to make sure that those more prominent systems are taught in the correct way.
Yes, that is the goal.
Any other comments?
Dr. Simpson, could you elaborate a little more on the 23-24 piece? This is about identifying barriers, challenges, but also you had mentioned, your team had mentioned like trying to identify like pilot systems that might want to participate in something a little more robust.
Yes, so what we are looking at in 23-24, just perhaps with Jackson Parish, we know that Tangipahoa Parish is doing this already, and so we're talking with them about what challenges took place to them as happened to them as they embarked on this. So systems who may not be doing this, who want to work with us on implementing this daily implementation, we're more than happy to work with you all on that, to see what challenges you all have with this, especially systems who may be using, one system may be using JCampus, somebody else may be using PowerSchool, so we can see, what are the differences with those. And then we do know of some places that are not using these electronic daily systems, so we want to be able to help them to know what they could be doing in using these systems. So that is the goal for 23-24. So if anybody does want to participate, please reach out. I already have that.
Any other questions or comments? And you did mention something, I had a question on, if you can expound on it a little bit more. So when we streamline just the three, down to three, you mentioned JCampus or PowerSchool or whatever the other vendor may be, I think those are the primary two in Louisiana, they're gonna be able to streamline all this as well, they're gonna be able to make sure.
Yes, we have reached out to those two vendors. We've reached out to both of them, correct? I know JCampus definitely. We reached out to those two vendors and they indicate that this can be done. We have spoken with them, but again, we want to make sure so that we will be bringing them to the table as well to ensure that this can take place.
I have a quick question. So without trying to sound too technical with it, because I've been like really involved in this attendance thing, especially after we received like the truancy numbers that came out, and we were like, there's no way that it could be that high. It has a lot to do with like the coding and stuff. So you're telling me that your coding, when it's reported to the state, you're changing up the coding when you're changing up this policy?
Not necessarily. So when you all, at the local level, there are many codes that are utilized.
Right.
Those codes will streamline into 3 codes at present instead of 4.
Right, okay.
So that's the difference right now. It's just going to report to us either excused, unexcused, or suspension exposure. So the codes that you all use right now will not change.
And that's also why that's also why we're given this year of just this kind of back and forth feedback to figure those things out.
All right, thank you. You're welcome. And I do not know the technical side.
I have a quick question related to the policy. I'm sorry, because it's coming to the board next week. You have exempted and non-exempted. Were those codes before? That's being deleted. Were those previously codes to be used?
So the codes have been, the technical side of it with the codes, the numbers do not change. So where those fell beforehand will fall either into excused, unexcused, or suspension, expulsion.
But the exempted and non-exempted was never a factor before?
No, it was what was reported, and we're just not actually that being reported under those, in the upcoming three, the changes.
One more question. So that means that the unexcused absences, which ones will be considered as truant? I know for sure it'll be unexcused. And will you consider the suspension expulsion as one of the truancy codes? Because when you change that, you're changing up the things that you're looking for when you're pulling, when you identify a kid as truant.
So to identify a kid as truant, that is a student who has missed 5 unexcused absence or 5 tardies.
Right.
So that truancy is a totally different than the types of absence.
But what you're pulling from J Campus, the coding, when you list it as unexcused, that is a truancy code. So that is what you're pulling. That along with some other things to give you the truancy.
Have given you some technical stuff that we probably need some additional.
Dr. Singleton?
Yes.
So the question would be, oftentimes if a student doesn't show up, we would mark the student as unexcused, and then perhaps a couple of days later, they'll come in with a medical excuse, which we would then change the code to reflect that. Is that something you all are going to consider? You know, when we're reporting it daily, it could change.
And it will change in the system, yes.
I think what would happen is whatever, like at the end of the day, the number that's reported 2 or 3 days later, that number's going to change because you're going to have a dentist appointment that's added in, you're going to have those things.
And we recognize that, yes.
One last question for you. You may have answered already, but just for clarity. With suspension and expulsions, depends on the district. You could have in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, in-school expulsion. Unfortunately, if something happens, out-of-school expulsions, so those codes can change a little bit. Consideration is going to be taken for those unique things that will happen with expulsions and suspension.
Yes, and again, that's at the local level with the code being, you know, if you all have an in-school suspension code or an out-of-school suspension code, that is not changing at the local level. That will just likely roll up into the suspension expulsion at the state level.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none.
Is this something y'all would like to endorse? Just a question, I don't know, or we doesn't receive.
Currently, we have a motion to receive consideration for.
Okay.
Any opposition? Hearing none. We'll move to our first item that was moved. This is item 4.1. Yes. Item 4.1, consideration of an update report regarding Louisiana broadband expansion. We have a motion to receive. Motion by Mr. Charles Clay. Second by Mr. Robert. Robert.
So, Renee Andrar was going to make the report today, but was not able to be here with us today. So, member Tim Thomas is going to work with us here today to share some information.
Thanks, appreciate it. Yeah, Pete sent his regrets that he couldn't attend today. He is traveling
So I did want to kind of go over, you have some documents that I think were handed out to you previously. I wanted to give you an update on what we've done as an office, what our plans are kind of for the next 6 months, 6 to 9 months or so, and then go over the letter and checklist that you have, just to give you some background on that. So really the most, and in front of you, you have a report. It was a legislative report that we submitted about, I think it was in January, listing out, a lot of what we've done over the past year as the office. Main point is that we launched and awarded infrastructure projects for our Gumbo grant program. So these were ARPA funds through capital projects that amounted to about $170 million in locations, 80,000-ish locations across the state. And if you go to our website, you can actually see a map of where those locations are specifically. It covers the vast majority of the state. There's almost a representation for a project in almost every parish. So we were really excited about that. To get more specific into it, that $170 million is actually the funding that's coming from us. The total investment will be a little bit over $300 million, I think. So a lot of that was private matching funds that were put up by either local entities, school districts, or mostly the providers themselves. And the program actually resulted in about a 43% total match from private companies like that. So we were really excited about that number. We actually have only 3 protests that are still outstanding. So 77 out of the 80 projects have grant agreements that have been executed. And these projects are, some of them actually have already been completed, which was exciting to hear. But the average build time is 18 months or less. And a lot of the projects that had more lengthy times, we're hearing that those actually aren't going to take as long as they were originally stated. So again, really excited about that. It's getting good high-speed broadband connectivity to a ton of residents throughout the state. Some other notable things on here, we had some legislation that was passed to establish the state's first broadband map. And we're working on some recommendations for proposals to legislative changes for our program this upcoming session. You'll also see that there's a list of federal programs that are providing infrastructure funding for areas throughout the state. So one of those is the RDOF program. That might be one that you're familiar with because it does cover a vast majority of the state. While we don't manage that program because we're a state office and it's a federal program that's managed by the FCC, recently the Public Service Commission passed a resolution to compel the internet service providers who are participating in RDOF to provide quarterly reports to the PSC about their build time and when they're planning to complete projects. This has been a huge thing that we've talked to a lot of locals about, where they're excited to see that there's funding coming from the Gumbo program, but they really want to know when these RDOF projects are going to get off the ground and start. So that's a great thing that the PSC has done. It should provide some more transparency for the projects that are being built that are sponsored by the FCC. You'll also see a chart here that has the projects and the parishes where they were awarded, as well as the number of locations, just in case you want to dive into that and look a little deeper. Again, all of this is on our website, and we're happy to provide updates, on any of that as you need it. Our email address is on the letter that's provided. It's just connect@la.gov, and that goes to all 3 of us in the office. So any questions you have about that, feel free to go through and send them in that manner. I'll stop right there and see if there's any questions on what we've done before I dive into our plans for this year. Any questions? Yes.
You mentioned 3 that were not, 77 out of 80. Can you elaborate on those 3?
Yeah, so we had to run a protest process for every project, for companies who might serve the area already, to protest that this area is already served. So 3 of those, one of those projects is actually, we're launching a new round for it. We've been directed to launch a new round for it starting March 1. So I think that's in Point Capee Parish. And then there's 2 others that are pending litigation. So we'll know the outcome of those probably this summer at some point. But again, the vast majority of the projects, 77 out of 80, are, shovels are turning dirt for a lot of those. Okay, so our plans for 2023, so we were the first state to receive our planning funds for the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. So being the first state to receive those funds, we're the first to have our plan due, and I think it's due May 31. So what we've done, what we're doing this spring is designing our 5-year plan and initial proposal to pull down the over $1 billion that we're going to receive through the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Act for infrastructure deployment in the state. What you'll see from our office probably in end of March, early April, is our draft plans. We're going to make that available for public release and public comment to basically get feedback from every stakeholder in the state about what type of information they feel should be included or anything we might have missed. It's part of an important requirement for receiving BEAD funds. So again, we'll be pushing that out, and we welcome anyone to provide feedback on what we've worked on and insight into anything we might have missed. So that's one thing that we're working on. Again, I mentioned this round that we're running this March. I think it's might be a little under 4,000 locations in Point P Parish that we'll run a new round for, and hopefully have some a grant agreement executed for that by May 1. That's another thing we're working on. Really, we've also been working with the Board of Regents on our digital equity plan. So not only do we have the infrastructure side, we also have digital equity planning that we're doing right now. So the Board of Regents has worked with a consortium of universities throughout the state to start the process on that. We should also be receiving a draft of that plan in the next few weeks, which again will be provided for public comment for anyone to provide feedback on. Let's see if I missed any. There's a lot of things going on, so if I missed something, it is what it is. But that's really the gist of a lot of what we're working on. We're hyper focused on the initial proposal and the 5-year plan for the BEAD funding and the digital equity funding at this point, and trying to make sure that we're crossing the T's and dotting the I's, and we get feedback from all necessary stakeholders involved. So before I stop for questions, I wanted to wrap up with the documents you have in front of you. So there is a letter that kind of describes what I've said in regards to our office, just a quick little overview. And then there's a revised version of a checklist that you might have seen previously last year. We tweaked it some to provide current information on items that you can take back to your districts and make sure that you're pushing out to the necessary stakeholders. Two important things, not only do we want to engage with you where we can, or if you have questions on anything like that, or if you need to host a meeting and have us attend, we're happy to do that. But in regards to affordability, the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program became the ACP program. It offers up to $30 a month for qualifying households off their broadband bills. And so this could be something as simple as a child who receives free or reduced lunch at school. They would allow their household to get $30 off their internet plan. That program is an FCC program, and you can find out more information on that at fcc.gov/ACP. Has some great marketing materials that you can push out to whoever, whichever stakeholders you need to, but it's a great way to get engaged with the parents and the students and say, hey, look, you need to look at this and possibly get a little bit of money off of your bill every month. Another thing that's important is in regards to the FCC's National Broadband Map. So currently they're accepting challenges for availability to households. I would highly encourage all of you to make that known to stakeholders and say, look, we know that the service is bad in Louisiana. Go out, check your location or your address and see what is stated to be offered there. And if it's not accurately reflected, challenge that. So it's a very easy process to do. We have a link on our website to get there, and you can actually go to the FCC's website and protest or challenge those availability locations as well. So those are the two really important homework items for y'all to understand, or good to get out in front of those stakeholders. So that's really all the prepared information I have. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
I have a question. In looking at this chart,
Yes.
where you have the match
Why is there such a variance? Can you kind of unpack what the match means and why there's such a variation? And then also, if there's not a date for the grant agreement being extended, is that something that we need to do to ensure that that's moving forward? So some of the projects that are represented on there with not applicable, they were either withdrawn or, I think they were probably withdrawn projects. The ones, and this hasn't been updated since our latest revision to having 77 out of 80. To speak to the, and again, this is all, we can provide an updated list if you'd like, a digital version of it, and it's also available on the website. In regards to the match, really the way the program was structured, based on the ARPA requirements for spending of the CPF dollars, we had to say that there was a 20%, a provider had to put up 20% minimum to be able to even participate. What we did with our scoring criteria is we incentivized higher matching percentages as providers put up more money, really to stretch our dollar further. So you'll see like that top one in Acadia Parish had a match of 80%. That means that probably that provider was going to that location already, and that they put up 80% of the CapEx to get there, while the state would only have to match 20%. Again, the baseline was only a 20% match, but a provider that really wanted to increase the amount of points that they got as part of the scoring could up it as much as they wanted. There was no limit on that. So that's why you see the differences across a lot of the different projects with how much a provider put in and how much they might have had a municipal government or a school board or someone put up as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? John?
I'm not sure if you were in Greenville with Denise a few weeks ago, in AT&T. We had a conversation, we talked about shovels turning over dirt, about the possibility of homeowners hitting water lines and sewage lines. And we talked about possibly a communication coming from your office that we put out because our community members would be upset.
Yeah.
You all working on communication like that?
So we're actually working with the governor's office. They have the infrastructure coordinator in that office, and I think we actually have a meeting next week to further vet out, to further flesh out the information that we would want to provide for everybody. And that's a group of people that ranges from DOTD to the railroads, the gas providers, and everybody. So look for that kind of communication upcoming soon. I don't have a definitive timeline on it yet, but it is something that we're aware of. And the providers are also hyper aware of. The last thing we want to do is have a delay because they don't have enough people to go out and mark water lines or gas lines. So there is a huge push to understand the challenges behind that the providers have, and then the things that we can do to help mitigate the timelines that it might take to actually get out there and make sure they're not hitting anything. So.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
We can talk about it later, but I'll ask the question now. I'm representing St. Michael Parish, and we're a very rural community. And so, while there are a lot of, this is great, by the way, and also we talked about the Steve Carter initiative earlier. However, there are some challenges where there are communities in St. Michael Parish where they don't have accessibility to broadband or internet, fiber, etc. Recently went to a town hall. That was the major topic of discussion. And so I guess my question is that as this moves forward, are there some timelines that we're looking at being able to, ensure that we have, the citizens have access to broadband?
Yeah, so actually I can answer that now. So with the BEAD funding that we received from U.S. Commerce, we have to certify that all broadband serviceable locations in the state are serviced with reliable high-speed internet. We are pushing as hard as we can to get that funding as quickly as possible. We have tentatively scheduled a grant round to start utilizing those funds this fall. Again, there's a lot of things that need to fall into place with alignment for that to happen. But really the way that we'll structure that is that our office will design the project area. Previously, with our first round, we essentially allowed the providers to structure which areas they wanted to serve, which resulted in, cherry picking or going after the low-hanging fruit. So what we'll do is, based on the requirements that are there from B, we'll design a project area that a provider could then apply for. And we'll use our scoring criteria to vet out which one would win the project. So again, we have to move, we're moving as fast as we can. I mean, there's a sense of urgency here that everybody needed this yesterday. So, there was a big push earlier this year to delay the allocation process from the feds to say, hey, state, this is the amount you're going to get. We actually worked with the governor's office in a letter to U.S. Commerce that said there is no reason to delay. We have to move with a sense of urgency. We want our citizens to have access to this as soon as possible. And so, that they listen to us. They want that too. And they feel that it's important, not only from a Louisiana perspective, but across the country to get these funds out so we can spend them and get them internet as fast as possible. So hopefully we can run a grant round this fall, but certainly within the next few years, we're going to start to see more projects across the board, more competition in a lot of these rural areas where there hasn't been any before. And you're going to start to see, even by the end of the year, with a lot of these gumbo projects from the first round, they're going to be completed. So it's certainly something that we're moving with a sense of urgency on.
Thank you. Superintendent Jenkins, I just want to ask the question, is there anything that the group needs from the Office of Broadband that they feel like they haven't received yet? And the same thing to the Office of Broadband, is there anything that you all need from the superintendent?
I'll start with that. I think when we send out our 5-year plan and initial proposal for review, we welcome everyone's feedback on that. That'll be really important. We want to get that right. We want it to be a model for other states to utilize. So capturing feedback where we can is important. I'm happy to see, I know that's that's probably the biggest action item that we have outside of the few little things on the checklist. But I'm happy to, if there's resources that we can provide to you, I'd love to hear them, or we can, schedule some time to meet later as well.
How do we find information about the status of the particular vendors that won a Flavorn Parish?
Yes.
The status of where they are. You hear different things from different sides,
Yes.
and I can't get a...
I'm glad you asked that question, because that's one of the things that I did want to mention that just slipped my mind. So we are requiring all of the award winners of the Gumbo Grant Program to submit monthly reports on the status of their projects, how many locations they've connected, how many subscribers they have, how many miles of fiber they built, a few different metrics that we felt are important to showcase to people that these projects are getting completed. So that is actually due March 1. That's when their first set of reports are due to us. Our goal with that, which is actually the meeting I'm going to in 15 minutes, is to show a public-facing dashboard of the data that we receive from the providers, to basically give you the ability to go on to our website, pull up your parish or your city or town, and see which projects are operating there and the completion, and how far they've been completed. In a perfect world, we would like to also start to incorporate the reports that the PSC receives on RDOF bill into the same type of dashboard, so we can keep track on those projects. What that'll do is it'll allow you to see the providers that are moving faster and the ones that aren't moving so fast, and allow you or other municipal leaders to engage with those providers to determine if there's any challenges they might have, or workforce issues, supply chain issues, anything like that that come up. Because really the idea here is to over communicate and to give people information on what's going on. So if there are issues, they don't wait on the wayside to be resolved. They can be resolved as quickly as possible, and the project can continue moving forward. So look for that. I don't have a definitive release date on the dashboard yet, but like I said, I'm going to see a demo of it in 15 minutes, so hopefully they've got something good and we can continue pushing and integrate that data into the public dashboard.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments?
Yes, ma'am.
So I do know that school systems are not spearheading, this initiative, that it's basically the local government. But what can school systems do to help push this further along? Because from what I'm being told in my parish, it's hard to even get a vendor that's willing to come in and partner with our parish because it's expensive. And quote unquote, they're looking to receive, profit from the work they do.
So, I mean, that's the inherent goal of what we're trying to do, is to lower their barrier of entry into a location. I would argue that school systems play an important part. They're one of the entities where a match from the school system provides extra points for an application. Even without putting up, monetary funds, you can also write a letter of support for providers that are operating that are trying to operate in your area. So those are things that the school system can work with the parish government on locally to decide how we align our resources to really get projects that are going to benefit everybody. But I think if you have any specific questions on that, or if you have anybody you need to talk to, you can email us and we'll be happy to make those connections, either with local people or the internet service providers that might be interested in the area.
Do we have any public comment? Yes, we have public comment from Mr. Ronnie Morris. Mr. Morris? Morris, excuse me.
Was it you? Yeah. I also want to recognize Ms. Holloway.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Morris, before we begin, I would like to recognize Ms. Sandy Holloway.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, so first of all, I just wanted to thank you for coming out today.
Yes, sir.
Bessie, we did hear feedback from superintendents that there were some gaps, in some of these rural areas, and they weren't getting the support that they needed, so the students could get connected. So number one is Bessie is listening to you guys, and we are responding. We did get this item on the agenda today, so that you can get this message and, get that opportunity for engagement. Question I had, and you spoke to a little bit the dashboard that you're developing, but I didn't hear the word mapping used, and so I was curious where you guys are on the mapping, with regard to alignment with the feds as well as locally, and how you're planning to, I guess, communicate that through the dashboard.
Yeah, so we have a map of awarded areas on our website currently. I think I referenced that earlier, where you can go and actually see the locations that are going to receive service. That will integrate with the dashboard where, you can slice and dice the view or the data however you wish. In regards to, say, a statewide map, what we're doing is working with NTIA to integrate their challenge process, their model challenge process, into what we want to do as a state. We're waiting for them to provide guidance to us on what that looks like. That should be in the next few weeks that we receive that. And that'll really direct how we move forward with what a statewide availability map looks like. The real meaning behind what we're trying to do here is save time in the review process as we get certified to spend those funds. So if we were to have a existing map and challenge process and all these different things that are going on, that would add an additional 5 to 6 weeks of review, of administrative review from their perspective, and it would delay us getting approved even longer. So what we're looking to do is essentially say, okay, if they're going to say this is the model challenge process, and Louisiana's going to say, okay, we adopt that. That's going to save us a 1.5 month time frame from their perspective on a review. So we'll know more in the next few weeks about what exactly that looks like. But that's really the main reason why we're trying to do it, is to take something that they are creating, adopt it, and then save us a little bit of time when it comes to that review process, so we can get our initial proposal approved faster and we can receive the funds faster.
What do you think is appropriate for the next update that you can give this group?
Maybe in the next 3 or 4 months. Maybe, I think, quarterly or every. I think the last time we addressed, I don't remember the last time it was addressed, because, Beneath goes out and does some of this stuff without telling us, but, 3-4 months-ish, I think that, you'll see information from our office in regards to us soliciting feedback for the 5-year plan and initial proposal soon. So once we get that and we can start to incorporate that by the end of May, that's when our plan is due. So it may be a good time after that. Again, it's, we're happy to come do this whenever we need to. So
quarterly sounds great.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions from the councilman? Hearing none. Any opposition to the report? Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir. All right. And we're going to go back to our first item. We had item 3.1, consideration of a discussion regarding accountability issues concerning innovative assessment and LEAP task force.
Motion to receive.
Motion to receive.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Coker, second by Dr. Jefferson. Dr. Roberts?
Yeah, Mr. Jenkins, this was an item that you all had requested to be on the agenda, so we were just happy to comply with that request.
I'm sorry, we didn't get it.
Dr. Coker and then Dr. Jefferson.
Okay,
I was just.
Okay. There are some questions regarding this particular item. Is there any comment from the council regarding this item?
Sure. So the main topic related to innovative that we included here was what the specific request was, which was around the inclusion of the innovative assessment in VAM in the first year that a test is operational. Last year, 7th grade assessments were operational. We were able to determine that those results were correlated with the traditional 7th grade LEAP patterns, from traditional LEAP to IAP, from that pattern that we need to see be right in order for it to work in the VAM model. We were able to figure that out after we ran the VAM. The VAM is a multi-week process in order to include all of the results. And we're confident that we'll be able to do that same thing this year. We're also hopeful, not confident, but hopeful, that we will be able to do something faster than that this year, which is get some preliminary data to help determine before we run the VAM whether we think that the data are correlated, and then potentially include the operational results same year. So 7th grade would be in there, as well as the 2 other operational grades in the same year instead of being delayed by a year. I try to be a straight shooter. I'm telling you that I can't commit to doing that, but I can tell you that last year we were able to determine that 7th grade worked, and 7th grade will be included this year. But I can't tell you for sure that we're going to be able to, 1, run them through the model and then be correlated, and then 2, if that is true, make sure that it's included before the VAM, but we're sure going to try. A lot of it depends on how quickly do we get the results back, how quickly do we get traditional LEAP results back, run those correlations, and run them in the VAM model, which if we were to run the VAM model twice, it takes 4 months instead of 2 months, which is a pretty significant delay in results and all those types of things. So once you know we are working on it, we are hopeful that we'll be able to include operational results same year, but not close enough that I would stake my life on it, but stand on it. So I wanted to give that update and happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Kennedy?
I'm not sure everybody's exactly aware the innovative assessment program is 23, 24 districts that are now part of this, is that correct?
It's about 10% of students.
Okay.
I don't have the exact number of systems.
Last year, our 7th graders were live in it, so we got test scores, but we didn't get any growth for those children. So next year, because growth is 2 years, we won't have any growth for those children either. And 6th, 7th, and 8th grade are all live for us this year. And I believe what y'all put out, the current 7th graders, we will be able to get growth for them. But 6th and 8th grade were to be determined, okay, which is basically just going to leave us up to 6 opportunities over a 2-year span. We're going to have the opportunity to get growth for half of those children. And a middle school that contains grades 6, 7, and 8, that when they start looking at their growth component, and they're only going to have the opportunity, as it's read right now, because to be determined, that they're only going to be able to get growth in half for those ELA kids, they have some concerns. And I asked you the question, and I just want to bring it to everybody else's attention, that is there a way to fill those gaps? Could you take data from previous years of those kids' growth and substitute, like we've done before for social studies depth, our science test when we had a year of this, and that. And you said feds had frowned upon that. So if it's not determined, if you're unable to provide the correlation in a timely manner this summer, then my principals just simply need to be aware they're just not going to have the opportunity for growth in those classes, correct?
I think I would just start with, I know that for the last year and a half, we have communicated very clearly in all of our documentation that it was not sure that we were going to be able to include these results in BAM. I can go back and show frequently asked questions documents, accountability presentations that walked through that. I understand that some folks did not get that message. That is what was always stated all the way through. My team was very clear that we weren't certain, and we had a lot of discussions about how likely do we think it is, how do we want to message this, and we opted to be very transparent that we weren't certain that we were going to be able to do it, which is why I am continuing to be very transparent with you now, that I am hopeful, I'm confident and certain that we can include the seventh grade results, but I am not there on the rest of the middle school because we just don't know. We have a lot of really good indicators that they are going to be correlated. We've done it once. That gives us good hope, but we also don't want to tell your middle school principals that it's going to be included and then fall short. We definitely don't want to do that either. So we try to be very transparent about that and clear from the beginning of the program. And we will continue to try to push the envelope and get the data as quickly as we can and run those correlations multiple times to include them if we can in that BAM. But I can't make results that don't exist, and you wouldn't want me to, right? So
Let me go ahead and say, we love the way it works. I mean, it's a 3-year test model where you're teaching a unit, you're testing it. That's what we did as teachers 35 years ago when we started. Instead of giving one test at the end that determined all of your credit, per se. So we like the through model. We like that. But there's an opportunity to join in the 3rd and 4th grade, which eventually will. Now, you have to imagine there's some apprehension on some of my elementary schools that go through the 4th grade. That is there a possibility when it goes live that we won't get any growth for ELA kids? For a couple of years, let's let somebody else be the guinea pig, and then we'll get back in it and honestly, I don't want to do it that way. But I just can't go out there and tell them there's a possibility, the way it looks, that you may not get growth for that. Let me ask this to you. You said when you started there that y'all will run the simulations and determine if there's a correlation. What if there's not a correlation? Do we never get growth for those? Is that a possibility?
that's exactly why we included the language that we did at the beginning of the program. If it were to get to that point, we would have to explore other ways to measure VAM or other VAM models that might be able to handle assessments that are on different scales, which we're prepared to engage in those conversations if we get there.
I love the model. My folks love the model. I don't want the model to go away, but I hope everybody understands the concerns they have when they necessarily won't get half of the ELA credits.
And I completely agree, and that's why we were very, very specific in those documents. I didn't want anybody to feel like they didn't, that we weren't honest about the fact that we were not certain that they were going to wind up on the same scale. We were confident that we were pretty certain that we could get it to, is a student at mastery, is a student scoring advanced, but we were not certain that we could say that the 742 and the 742 when the two were the same. So we were very, very clear about that. And if we're unable to correlate them, then we'll identify other ways to resolve it.
I obviously missed the documents. I'm one asking questions. I missed some of those documents. We got in this before COVID. Our 7th grade would have been live, I think, the year of COVID. I think in 20, maybe 21. So COVID kind of delayed everything, but we missed some of that. There are a number of parishes on this list that recently have joined that we're not aware of it as well, and they had expressed simply to me, we wouldn't have jumped off in the middle of this if we knew that would have been the case with property. So some of them may have missed it as well. I just hope there's a way to resolve it. The biggest thing my folks ask about, those holes that we're going to have, that you're saying you can't get, there's no way to fill those holes from past information.
we can continue to push on USM, ask that question. This is all being done under the IADA waiver, which does not allow you to use old scores. You have to use the scores that are associated with that assessment itself, but we can continue to ask and let them know this is a growth area that we're learning. There are not very many states that are in this waiver, and see if we can get some kind of relief.
On that note, if I can ask Mr. Jenkins, and I don't know how y'all have to ask your questions to the feds on what can be or cannot be. So even if you're not using old data, maybe just use the same students' data that they made on growth in math or, you know, some of the other areas. Just explore every option for some type of measure. I concur with Mr. Kennedy and the concern there. I think a lot of us missed it. In fact, there was a big announcement at the end of last year before accountability came out that, hey, this is not going to be on there. So, and most of us seemed surprised by that information. So we all obviously missed it, or a bunch of us. So I guess just that second part of Mr. Kennedy's question about pursuing all other ways to have a growth measure for those students, even if it's, because it's not something abnormal. We've done it before when we changed assessments and used prior year data or something. So maybe another option would be use those same students, just data from other areas, double up that growth for that same amount.
Mr. Kennedy, would you want us to use their math results?
It's zero, none, or that.
I don't want it.
If you're using the
I don't think
math
that-
refresh,
I mean,
if you're
obviously
using the
we're not
math
gonna
refresh, you
use-
should. Mr.
Yeah, obviously, we're not gonna use math results for ELA part there, and I think everybody in the room would rather have ELA growth than they have instead of the math growth.
Yeah, we're running all those options now, but we have discussed the math results.
Using the math results to double?
Well, you and I have discussed the math results briefly.
Okay.
We are looking at all the options, including the one that is the best one, which is run the correlations earlier and then include them in the VAM from the beginning, which we are gonna push and push and push and really try to get there. I can't promise that we're gonna get there, but we're gonna do everything in our power to get there.
Look, confirm for me, the seventh graders that took it last year, those that were actively involved in it last year, we didn't get progress points for those seventh graders. But yet, after the fact, y'all were able, through the simulation, to determine that it will work. They can get that. There's not a way, I think I asked you this earlier, and I think you answered it, but I'm gonna ask it for everybody else to take it. There's not a way to give those kids their growth to mastery targets, because that would go in the data for the last year and at least fill one of those spots. Is that not allowable?
We certainly could rerun the VAM model, but it would change everyone else's VAM results, because those students would go in and take another student's percentage location. So we could do that, but it would change everyone's progress index for the previous year in order to do that, which we can explore that.
Thomas, just for clarification, let me say this. Hopefulness is better than nothing. So we certainly appreciate the fact that, you know, you were hopeful that maybe this will happen, especially when we have all of our middle schools rely on 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in Washington Parish. And so I guess my question is, I'm hearing that there is actually a crosswalk document showing a correlation between innovative assessment and LEAP based on what you have done from this past 7th grade live year testing.
6th to 7th grade, yes.
Okay. All right, so let me ask this, because this is the big question, and it's not whether we're going to get them for this next year or not, or this testing cycle. What is the, we've been in this innovative assessment we were one of the first districts in the state to actually commit to it, and we have done that. We have committed to this. I think it's a great way, and if you go and you ask my teachers and you ask my students, they're going to say, yes, I love being taught and tested within a 9 or 10 week period, because it's fresh, it's there, and so we feel like that is a better way of assessing our students, and even looking at the growth that they're making from guidebook to guidebook throughout the course of the year. So what is the direction that the state is going concerning innovative assessment? if we have 23 districts in the state now that's coming on board, and then we have 45 that is still doing the regular LEAP test at the end of the year, what is the direction that you foresee the state going? What's the big picture? Is this something that we are going to continue to, to pilot, even though it is now live? And to me, once something is live, you're no longer piloting it. It's counting. It's there. The scores are out there. Where are we going? What is the direction?
So it's described as a pilot, but it's a temporary authority from the U.S. Department of Education called the Innovative Assessment Demonstration Authority. During the period of time, you have to demonstrate that your assessment is going to work, will pass peer review, all of those different types of things. Additionally, the current innovative assessment that is being given is all focused on guidebooks, which is one particular curricular choice. The department is working on developing a similar assessment that is not curriculum dependent, but is curriculum relevant or related, which is the next step of this work, so that the department is not compelling a district to use a particular curriculum, which would be a requirement if you were to scale the current innovative assessment, or at least you would push people to need to do that in order for the assessment to work. So the current approach is to continue learning from this assessment, build up our item bank, and also build out ways that if other districts that do not want to adopt the guidebooks curriculum are able to also do that, and continue to study and understand what it is that Louisiana wants in its assessment. When you look at the next slide, you will see some things that sit in tension with the current innovative assessment approach. The current innovative assessment approach assesses children, young people, and their teachers at the beginning of the year. And then at the end of the year, they're assessed again, but that beginning of year result is still influencing the proficiency rating of that student. That is something that is very clear in that in the advisory group's report that they don't want high stakes decisions being made at the beginning of the year. And that's a thing that the current assessment, while it gives an opportunity for some correction, that influence is always going to be there in that assessment. So we want to continue to understand and engage. We're one of the first states in the country to really focus in on this. And we're prepared to study the data, and if this is the right direction, continue it. If it needs to be pivoted a little bit, and we feel like we're trying to go north, but we're going northeast, change direction a little bit if we need to, but continue to learn, but also not force districts to adopt a particular curriculum. So I know that was a long-winded answer and not exactly what you were looking for, but I hope it helped.
I want to add to it that I don't think it's our place, and legislatively it's not our place, to tell you what your curriculum should be. And this is basically saying this is the curriculum that you have to use to be successful. And so it's a way to push a particular curriculum into all of your systems. I think our goal should be to set the standards at the state board level and through support of our department, but local systems select their own curriculum. And so that's the challenge with this. We can say, oh, sure, take it out wide scale. But then every single system to be successful would have to be using a particular curriculum. And so that's what Thomas is trying to say. Like, we want to continue with through course assessment, which is part of the study that we're undergoing. We have to figure out how do you do that in a way that doesn't make the system use a very specific curriculum.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Any comments? Okay, hearing none.
It's included there if folks want to
Okay.
discuss that.
Well, our next meeting is March 23rd, and then we have another again in June 8th.
Mr. Jenkins, I'm sorry. What was your last comment relative to the innovative, the next slide? You didn't review those, or not reviewing those, or you just there for informational purposes?
It's there for y'all's discussion. It was a request.
Sure. Now, Paul, you led that group, correct?
No, we had a member of our staff in the Center for Assessment that led that group. I'm happy to discuss the 5 findings.
Yeah, just for clarification, this was requested we put on this agenda to provide an overview since Several of us were on that committee, and we felt it relevant to the discussion of not just the innovative assessment, but where the State Department is moving forward in regards to Big 2025, which the name itself, right, should end on 2025. So if you wouldn't mind, could you please provide a general overview of the work of that group? We'll have the department representative do so, and then kind of go over the findings. Because I think this was important work that a lot of us took part in, and I think it deserves an equal amount of reference to it.
I'm happy to start with, 2025 was not an expiration date. 2025 was an expectation as the year in which Louisiana would expect to earn an A in our accountability system that young people will be at mastery. Understood. So 2025 was not an expiration date. The assessments were built in order to last, one. Sure, they need everything needs improvement over time. We launched an innovative assessment several years ago as a department, and this advisory group was put together to gather information as we begin to think about what the long-term path is for our assessment. Our current assessment could continue for many, many years. It is sound in terms of its ability to measure proficiency at the basic region. There are areas where we want more information, and there's also very clearly a wish that the assessment gives different information at various points during the year. So the 5 key findings that are in that study, which is linked in y'all's slides, is 1, we want to preserve the content alignment rigor with LEAP. 2, we want to consider through your assessment design, but preclude high-stakes decisions prior to the end of the year. 3, provide more detailed and timely assessment reports. 4, promote efficiency by exploring an adaptive assessment. And 5, ensure state assessments will support academic growth. These are 5 things that we can all agree are things that we should look at and sort through and make sure that our assessment is able to provide things to educators that they need. Some of them sit in tension with each other, and some of them would be pretty significant shifts from the way that our current assessment works, and some of them would probably be a lot more expensive. So as we look at all of this, we wanted to gather more information, but what I distill when I read that report is the field wants strong tests, the field wants tests that tell them where their young people are, and they want to be able to act on that information quickly. And there are a lot of different ways to do that, and we have several years before we're re-RFPing the assessment content providers, as well as the delivery system, and we're going to make sure that we get that right before it goes out to bid, and we will do more engagement with you all as that time comes.
Thomas, I do feel that number 2 was kind of a consensus of the group as well, that 3-year model, as we were talking about the innovative assessment a while ago. That was a topic of discussion in several of our meetings as far as the future of LEAP 2025 was looking at that exploration of 3-year models in all areas. I know we're doing testlets now in math in a pilot. I believe it was mentioned when social studies comes out, is it not going to be a 3-year type model initially or something?
Our first iteration of social studies will be a 1 administration assessment like the traditional LEAP.
So I do think number 2, I think the consensus of the group, that was pretty popular as well.
There are a lot of different ways to accomplish number 2. One is the current approach in our innovative assessment, which is the cold read, warm read, hot read throughout the year, that's trying to accomplish a lot of different things at one time, including that kind of just-in-time assessment. Those results are ultimately rolling up to the final score. One of the things that I see in item 2 is not necessarily a summative assessment that is just sums 3 times a year. Like, you could imagine a world where instead of the through-course assessment rolling up to the final score, it being really high-quality, aligned interim assessments that are predictive of student outcomes instead of being rolled into their final score. And I think that's the tension point that folks sit in, because the current innovative assessment is not that. The current innovative assessment is giving some information, but not a whole lot, and it's chunking the test throughout the year and giving some opportunity for reassessment of learning. But at the end of the year, the student is not being reassessed on every one of those standards, right? Otherwise, the test would be twice as long. So there's a give and take here, but what I took from this is that the direction that folks would like to go in is a test that gives more information faster and and hopefully throughout the year.
Any other questions?
So Thomas, generally speaking, how is LDOE going to use the report and the findings, and what's an estimated timeline?
I don't have an estimated timeline. It's helpful information that we're going to continue to distill and ask follow-up questions as we move toward putting out to bid. I believe that the last extension of those two contracts is 2027, 2028 that is built in, so we have a little bit of time to make sure that we get this exactly right. Because as we can all agree, the groups, well, the people that were on the group, you can agree that we want some type of through course thing to be looked at, but how does that through course assessment look? Which is not something that group really tackled. So we want to make sure that we're getting all of that right before we chart a course and determine exactly when all of this is going to be together.
If I could just make a point too, that the Center for Assessment, the work that was done during that year and a half, 2 years, was excellent as far as facilitating collaboration of stakeholders, at least in our opinion of the group. The surveys that they provided to stakeholders, the collaboration of the members of that group, I believe we certainly came from different corridors of the education platform. This organization, I believe, handled those meetings in a very professional, collaborative way that necessarily didn't provide consensus, but generally, truly represented. I feel that we should be able to come together to truly discuss where we're heading as a state.
And they'll continue to be involved.
Great meeting, everyone. A lot of substance. Thank you for giving a couple hours.
Thank you to everyone. Before we close, we have a motion in the second. Any opposition you received? Hearing none. Thank you.
Just one quick comment. I think you did leave somebody out about the ASA. Congratulations to you for allowing us to be able to celebrate you as superintendent of the year in Louisiana.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right, y'all have a great day. Thank you.
Patrick, just for